Hey there, and welcome to Business Over Cocktails. I'm Lauren Najar, your host and hype woman, bringing you real talk about entrepreneurship. This is the podcast where we dive into the bold whys, the messy middles, and the game-changing aha moments that lead to success. You'll hear unfiltered stories from entrepreneurs, plus bite-sized solo episodes inside the Business Chaser series, where we cut through the noise and get straight to what actually drives sales, visibility, and growth. So whether you're here to get fired up or finally feel seen in your business journey, pull up a seat, pour your favorite drink, and let's have a real conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Business Over Cocktails. I am Lauren Najar, and today I am here with Kimberly Roy, and I'm so excited to get into our conversation because literally right before I pressed record, I'm like, oh my God, we have so many similarities. So I'm excited to get into that. She is the founder of Pitch with Kim, and she is an authentic visibility and lead generation strategist. We're going to have a good conversation today because you all know that I love lead generation. So thank you, Kim. I'm so excited to have you on here.
Amazing, Lauren. Thank you so much for this introduction. I am stoked. I love the parallels that we have going on here.
Yes. So I want to get right into it because your career history, and I don't know your extent of your career history, but something that I was easily able to find is you come from banking. So how did this transition come from banking compliance, building a business around lead generation and all of those things?
Yeah. So quite the shift, right? And I get asked that question all the time. How in the world did you go from compliance banking to PR and specifically in the podcasting space, right? And honestly, my story is one of spiritual awakening. It's one of deep, profound transformation. And it was change that happened to me. It shook up my life. And as a result of that, I changed and evolved. That is ultimately, the short part of the story, right? But truly, I grew up in a self-employed family. I watched my parents hustle. And somewhere along the way, I learned, whether it was verbally spoken to me or not, I learned that, you need safety, you need security. So I went for a business degree, but I landed in a corporate setting for that consistent paycheck, the benefits, right? And molding myself into a box that culture, society, all those expectations that are put on you, ultimately led by perfectionism and, all of those things, right? And that's what I strived for. I was a validation seeker. I really drove hard as an only child to make my parents proud and do all of those things. So the long and short of it, I went and really pursued this career that I really was passionate about for a long time. I'm like, great, I found my niche. I love what I do, until I changed and evolved. And that ultimately happened after I lost my father very unexpectedly 6 years ago. I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter. So as you can imagine, that really is what was the domino effect to the ultimate transformation. Took a couple years before that happened, but And as I evolved, I realized that box I had molded myself into, I'm like, wait a minute, not this. I actually don't want to be doing this, but shit, I don't know what to do because this is all I've ever known, right? 20 years, I've poured my heart and soul into this. I'm like, if not this, then what? And here's what happened to me. It's funny because this is the power of manifestation. And when you can really look back and reflect and you think, wow, in hindsight, gosh, of course, all the dots are connected and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be on this journey. And now it makes sense. When it's happening in the moment, you're like, what, WTF, right? When you're on the other side of it, you're like, oh, but it makes so much sense. And when I was going through my change and transformation, I felt the deep call to put my story out there. Because I learned that through sharing my story of anger and shame around that, after spiraling from my father's passing, all the things, I wasn't alone in my suffering. I wasn't alone in my pain. And so using my voice to put that out there and creating impact amongst women who needed that from me in that time, I learned to find my voice and it helped me heal a lot of that shame. So what did I do? I launched a podcast, created a platform to bring women together, and totally just a passion product. I'm like, I'm just going to do this thing. I was still in corporate, all the things. It wasn't until about a year later, I unexpectedly lost my job. hello manifestation, did that one for myself. And I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. And one thing led to another. I put myself out there. My first handful of clients came to me and they were like, we want to get on podcasts. Can you help us? And I was like, absolutely. Here we go. And I have not looked back since. And what this has grown into is my passion for helping other women find their voice, use their voice authentically to build that impact that they want, to create that impact, to build the business and the brand that they desire for them.
I love all of that. We have another similarity that I didn't realize. My parents actually passed away a long time ago as well. And it was almost like a catalyst for me too. Again, looking back at, I wanted to be in banking. I wanted to have a very stressful career. I went to school for finance. So being a bank teller and working in a bank was definitely a resume builder, or it was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
My dad passed away. It was like within a month or so of me starting at the bank as a teller. And then I was diagnosed with cancer like a year later. So I ended up staying at the bank for about 10 years, and that was my career for a while. But similar to your story is, yes, that was a catalyst of like, I don't think this is my career. I don't want to have a stressful career. There's more to life. I don't want to just like go to work and, work 15 hours a day and like not have a life outside of it. Like that's more important to me. So yes, crazy how similar we are already.
So much. Yeah.
So again, on your website, that's where I'm getting a lot of this information. You're an author. What books have you written?
So I have co-authored one book so far. There's definitely another one in my future because my story is still evolving. It's not done. And I know that there's more here to uncover. But the book I co-authored also was happen chance. Truly, as I was networking for my own lead generation, I connected with the lead author of the book, Deserts to Mountaintops. It is a memoir anthology. And the book that I co-authored was the third volume in the series. I think they're working on the fourth one right now, actually. And her and I connected. Ultimately, I did some work from her and she was like, hey, I have this book we're working on and your story, man, is like, she's like, we need to feature this. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought about being an author. Like, for real? And you know what? I actually surprised the heck out of myself because I wrote this chapter, and I was like, oh, wow, I'm actually a really good writer. And I mean, I do pitching all the time, right? So I write all the time. It's just a little different. It's different when you're writing your story, your memoir. And just how much, when you put it down, that's also very healing, right? So that book was published in January. And my chapter in there is Grieve with Gratitude. And so it has very much to do with my mother's story and how that was impacted by the passing of my father and also the ultimate transformation in my business. And I speak in there to how that relates to my motherhood journey and exactly why I'm so passionate about empowering female business owners because whether you are a mother or not, we as women, we are nurturers. And if you're a business owner, that's your baby, right? And so we have legacies to leave behind. That is what I'm after here. So yeah, Grieve with Gratitude, Deserts to Mountaintops, The Pilgrimage of Motherhood was the third volume. And that is my first journey in becoming a best-selling author, no less. And so yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the next one, which will definitely be my own full novel.
That's so exciting. Yeah, you definitely have a story to tell. And there's so many layers to that. There's so many layers because you mentioned when your dad passed away, you were pregnant. And yeah, my parents passed away long before, I had my daughter. My daughter's only 2. My dad's been gone now for 15 years. My mom has been gone for 17 years. It'll be 17 years in September. And so being a mom now, all of that comes up to the surface. So there are new revelations, there are new lessons. And exactly what you said, I resonated with that a lot of like your story is still evolving. And I think grief isn't just like a period of time. It is something that is ever evolving and it gives us new lessons every single day. I feel like I'm still getting lessons from my mom and even my dad. Like, again, they haven't been here for a really long time. But I'm still like remembering things as I go through life, even though, I've known them. My mom passed away when I was 21 and I was 23 when my dad passed away. So it's crazy to think of like, I've almost lived double another 21 years since my mom. And then same thing with my dad. But I'm still getting those lessons. So I love what you said about like, and this goes for anyone, right, that's listening. It's like you have a story that has impacted you in a period of time. And this is kind of what I tell people about grief as well. If someone goes through certain things that I've gone through as well, is like there's so many ebbs and flows. And like one year you might be happy, one year you might be sad, but you get these lessons constantly through life. And definitely having my daughter and then postpartum and all of those things, it 1000% has affected me in like a completely new way. So I love that you are sharing that story more. And like you said too, it is ever evolving, even though it just impacted you in just like this period of time. As we continue on with life and then our own personal development journey, especially building businesses, that's going to really impact us for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, grief is all around us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
When did you realize that you were intuitive?
I laugh because I'm still figuring it out. When I was in the banking space, the last 10 years of my career, the latter part, the second half, I was specifically in compliance banking. I was the one going after the suspicious activity and like money laundering, the money, going after it, right? So I had that little investigative hat and I like love that, right? And I have this dear friend, a lot of my friends have told me this over the years, was a dear friend who was also in compliance banking with me, just in a different space. And she's always said to me, you're so perceptive. You're so perceptive. And I really, truly like never saw it in myself. I'm like, what do you mean? Like I'm perceptive? You just know. You just know. And I'm like, okay, right? And it wasn't until my father's passing and my own spiritual awakening, transformation, everything, I started learning more about like how to tap into your intuition. Like what is your intuition and how do you decipher between those thoughts, like the anxious thoughts in your head and your intuition? Like what is that? So that too has been its own evolution and journey over the years, right? Like it's what started as building my relationship with my father, with him on the other side, that has happened, which is beautiful and so amazing in so many ways. And now it's like evolving and I'm like, oh my gosh, now I can actually communicate with him in ways that I never thought possible before. So here's what I'm going to say to this is we as humans, we all have intuition. It's our internal GPS, right? We all have access to it. How we access it, though, has a lot to do with how we show up in life. And that is also why I'm here to bridge the gap with the visibility that we are after, because we need to show up authentically. And what does that mean? Is we need to tap into our intuition. We need to tap into ourselves. We need to know who we are, what makes us tick. And so that, Lauren, truly is still an evolution for me. I believe that I have some big shit ahead of me. And I think I'm going to do some big things with my intuition and my spirituality. I do not know what that looks like yet. But the more I go down this road and this journey, because there's no looking back at this point, the more I uncover. And it is so beautiful. And so I'm bringing that to my community, my space, where we really bring soul with strategy. And that's the impact that I want to create.
I love that. That was going to be my next question, was how are you integrating intuition and a lot of the spiritual side to you into the business, right? Because if we just, skimming your bio, skimming what you do, we hear visibility, lead generation strategist, pitching, podcasts. These are very non-spiritual things on the surface. And so how else do you think you like intertwine, like how you lead people, how you help people with their businesses with like the spiritual approach?
Yeah, that is something too that is still very much an evolution right now. And that has everything to do with me stepping outside of my own comfort zone and stepping into my authenticity. And when I started this year, I was like, this is it. I am going to, walk the talk. And not that I haven't been, but truly, I have been walking every step of this year with like, how can I show up more authentically? What else can I do? Right? With everything that I do, personally, professionally, and otherwise. And so in my business, I'm like, okay, this is it. It's time to start bringing this part into my business, that spiritual side. And by bringing it in, what I mean by that is, and just to be clear, I have always used it, right? Just like I use my quote unquote perceptive skills in banking, I'm using those same skills, my intuition, all of that when I work with my clients. And I think that's what really sets me apart from my competition. Because especially when I get someone in a one-on-one strategy session with them, there's so much magic that unfolds from that. I can read them like nothing else. And they're like, oh my God, how did you know? Oh my God, you just pulled that out of me. I'm like, no, it was in you. I helped you pull it out of you. And that's how I use it. Now I'm speaking more openly about it. I'm like, guys, you can't just have strategy. You can take it all in, right? But what is it, first of all, without integration, without implementation? And that integration and implementation, what keeps us stuck in resistance from actually putting it into motion. I mean, how many times, I suffer from this, right? Shiny object syndrome, like, ooh, the next best thing, let me take all the information in, then what? It's not driving results because you're not actually doing anything. To do it, you need to be regulated. You need to be intuitive. You need to stand in your truth and your authenticity. That's what it is. So now I'm speaking more openly about it. I'm like, and just being more visible, talking about visibility, right? Which is stepping outside of my comfort zone. And I'm saying this with full transparency because it's not a one and done. We don't just like become authentic overnight and then, have it all figured out tomorrow. And this is why I'm always saying, don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for your messaging to be perfect. Work with what you have now. Speak to the clients you're helping with transformations now and evolve as you go. Rinse and repeat and keep going.
That's the hardest part to coach on. I think, coming from the business coach side of things, I do something similar. I'm not helping people necessarily pitch to podcasts, but I am helping them show up in their businesses more authentically as well. And I think that's something over the years, if I were to think of just, one of the things that I talk a lot about through content is you need storytelling, right? And I think a lot of times when people work with me and they know my story and all the things that I went through, they easily compare that, right? And they're like, well, I don't have a story. I don't know how to share my special sauce or my authenticness, or no one cares about what I have to offer. And it's hard because that isn't something that I can just say, here's a checklist or here's a strategy. And it's the same thing with like building relationships, right? So like as a form of lead generation, I like to coach on building relationships. There isn't a way for you to build relationships. It all comes from within you and how you like to connect with people. And then going further is I love connecting the DMs with people. It's so easy for me to build relationships that way. I've signed clients through that way. I don't need to go on calls all day long. I build relationships with people, have normal conversations. And for some people, that is so hard to grasp. And so there isn't like again, like I think now we're kind of going into the intuition side of things of like you have to follow your intuition on how to approach a conversation, on how to do follow-ups, on how to position yourself, and then to tell your story and what your audience wants to hear. And I think like, I know for me, it's a lot of times I'm just like, you just have to do it because there isn't like a checklist of like, I can't tell you tangible things. The only thing I can tell you is how do you connect with people in real life? How do you tell your story? How do you have conversations? And that's what you can bring into the business side. And that's what matters. And so the question I have for you then is on like positioning, someone positioning themselves. A lot of times it's maybe a lack of story that people are fearful of, but the other thing could be saturation. And maybe you've heard that before too, like, oh, my market's so saturated. Why would they even choose me? So how do you go into helping someone like position themselves as almost like an industry leader or just someone that is different than people in their industry?
Yeah, I love this question. I knew this is where you were going with this. I'm like, yes, bring it. I love it. This is why I'm so passionate about this. And here's the thing, the positioning, right? And through the lens of podcast guesting, right? Because that is what I'm niched in. But what I want to say here is fill in the blank for you. If it's not podcast guesting, what is that visibility goal? Is it speaking on stages? Like what, fill in the blank. What is that for you? Visibility could be a number of different things, right? And so that positioning is your pitch. Pitch itself, that is a word that comes with its own, thing. It can cause some triggers into some people, and that's okay. But ultimately, that is what I'm trying to change. Pitching, to your point, Lauren, is relationship building. Yes, you are asking for something. Yes, you have to sell yourself, but it's not about being sleazy or, pushy or like, cheesy. It's about being authentic and it's about being yourself, right? going back to what you were saying, it's relationship building. So I'm huge on like, get creative with your pitching, first of all, right? Like the DMs, is it a voice note? Is it a Loom video? Like, what is it? Doesn't have to be a formal email, but here is what I will say. The positioning aspect is how you position yourself. First of all, the saturation, right? I hear it all the time. Saturation in your industry, oh, there's not enough, or who am I? There's not enough space for me in the podcasting world, or, what podcast will have me? All of that, those are limiting stories. Those are limiting stories because someone out there needs you. My motto is your voice is your authority. You do not need letters behind your name to have your voice heard, right? It doesn't matter what the certification is that you have. It doesn't matter what degree you have. Hi, banking, look at us, banking to what we do now, right? I mean, if someone were to look at your resume, they'd be like, I'm not hiring you for PR. What? You don't have any experience. But here's the thing. You do because you have lived experiences. You have a story. That is what sets you apart. That's your credibility, right? So that's your positioning. And so I hear it too, Lauren, is, well, I don't know what my story is, or what part of my story do I change? And so what I talk a lot about is the golden thread. This is the term that I use inside of my space in my community. And that golden thread, when I talk about that, is your story. It's the through line. So like for me, yes, it took the shakeup that I experienced in my life with the passing of my father and the transformation and all of that for me to really look back and be like, oh, I can piece the puzzle of pieces together. I can see that golden thread. I can see the through line, which is ultimately, I've had to learn over the years to use my voice, to rise up above cultural conditioning, perfectionism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It looks different for everybody, right? But that golden thread is your uniqueness and then your story along with that. So it's all in the positioning. And this is why it's very much an intuitive and authentic approach. And you have to take the time with yourself to get to know yourself. It's getting out of your head, going back in your heart. Again, soul meets strategy. You are your brand. So be you. And I teach you how to do that, how to pull that out. And then that's how my intuition comes into play, honestly.
Yeah. No, I love how you just had that like reframe of getting back to like truly like, your purpose, getting back to why you created this in the first place, who needs you? Because everything that you're saying again resonate. I've said it to my clients as well, where, a lot of times if you're getting in the weeds and you're thinking too technical, a lot of times we need to take a step back and just recenter ourselves and get back to the why and the purpose of why we're creating this in the first place. And thinking big vision of a goal. And if podcasting is something that you want to be on or starting your own podcast, getting back to the reason why. What does this mean for you? Let's not get into the weeds and the technicality. When it comes to the pitch though, right? You mentioned pitching it's a loaded word. What are the mistakes people make when it comes to pitching?
Right now, this day, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen so many different things, right? And it's not about perfecting it, okay? I want to call that out for what it is, because anybody can have a pretty solid pitch and then refine and try to, this, that, and the other thing. So first of all, please know that everything you do in your business is energetic. So anytime you're about to jump on a call, a sales conversation, prospective client, new referral, collaboration, go in the DMs to create those relationships, those bonds, get on a podcast interview, just talk to someone in the grocery line. Okay. It's all relationships, right? And so you need to be able to approach it that way. And the pitching aspect of it, I'm losing my train of thought here. I just went down the grocery line and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm at the grocery store right now. Bring me back, Lauren. Bring me back. Where was I going with this?
I don't know. Building relationships is where you were at. So you were talking about perfecting the pitch, building relationships, what mistakes people make. It does not need. Yeah. So thank you for that. Everything you do, I'm like, oh my God, squirrel. This is me. Hi, in a nutshell. But what I want to say here is no matter what you're about to do, right? It's all energy. It's all energy. So how you show up is super important. So first of all, it's not about like, oh my God, I got to like get it right. I got to this, that, and the other thing. It's like, no, be you, first of all, and be like, encourage yourself, be optimistic about it. Go in with a good energy. Like I'm doing this because I desire to, not because I have to, right? So like really, truly embodying
that version of yourself that is worthy of what it is you're seeking, that collaboration, that, whatever it is. But the mistake today in this day and age, and I'm going to call it for what it is, and I'm going to preface this by saying, trust me, I use AI religiously. The important thing here is to use AI as a tool, not to do it for you, right? Because you need to make sure that you are using your messaging, you are using your brand language, your brand voice. And again, it's that energy. So you can leverage AI, ChatGPT, whatever you want to call it, to help you formulate your pitch. But please do not just copy and paste what they spit out at you. Make it your own, and also add creative flair to it so that you can maintain that humanness with it, especially if it's a formal email going out. How can you stand out?
I feel like we can have a whole podcast episode on the creative behind AI. And I think even just the idea of, pitching not necessarily to podcasts, but like authors, right? Like you also work with authors and like using ChatGPT to submit an article or a chapter in a book. And like, I think like without going too deep into that realm, yes, it's such a great tool. It's such a great brainstorming tool. It's such a great tool to help you plan and get your ideas. And maybe you don't want to write down, it helps you work faster. But that's something that I don't know if I've had enough conversations about, but it's just like, man, like, I think I like listening to stories, right? And then that's why I'm creating this podcast, is I want to hear the stories. I don't want to hear what ChatGPT told you to give me 3 tips on how to pitch yourself, right? Or like lead generation strategies. And I think that's what people are going to forever still resonate with, is that creativeness and who you are and the words that you say. Because at the end of the day, and even these questions I'm asking you, these are just coming from a conversation that we're having right now, rather than a list of conversations that ChatGPT told me to ask you, right? So I feel like that's just something for anyone who's listening of like, how are you utilizing ChatGPT, and is it taking away your creativity? This is a really great thing that you just said, is like, yes, you can have that perfect pitch and have ChatGPT refine it for you. But the edge actually isn't the professional perfection. It is the creative flair, like you said, your voice. And that's what's going to stand out, because we know that everyone else who's pitching may be using ChatGPT as well. And the harder thing now is to make it sound like you, because everyone else is doing the opposite.
100%. 100%. Can I offer an example for one of my clients that just happened recently?
Go ahead.
So she shared this with me, and I was like, this is freaking amazing, right? So she pitched Kathy Heller to have her on her podcast, right? So as a guest on her own podcast. It was a DM pitch, and she shared with me, she sent her 2 voice notes, not expecting much in reply. Kathy messaged her back and said, "Hi, I got your messages. I love your energy. I love everything about you. You're in resonance. And so for that, yes, I will absolutely come on your podcast." And this client of mine shared that in that podcast interview with her, she asked Kathy, she's like, well, it was just a competition. I didn't really actually think you were going to write back to me. I'm sure you get so many messages in your Instagram DM, right? And she's like, honestly, it was your energy. And that is the only reason I wrote back to you.
That's awesome.
So there you have it.
And it's the energy, but also like the ability to leave a voice note. Like, that's something different. That's something that where people can copy and paste a pitch, right? And send 100 DMs. But your client took the time to not only personalize the pitch, but then also send her voice note. You can forward voice notes, you can copy, you can upload. And I get those all of the time, or the same video over and over again, where they don't personalize it. They don't say your name or anything. It's being sent to 100 other people. So yes, I love that. And yeah, people can tell your energy. People can tell when it's authentic. I think going back to the authenticity keyword here is that people can actually feel that. Mm-hmm. When you are manufactured or trying to hit certain buckets, or just trying to have that perfectionism, there's not that warmth. There's not that deeper storytelling. There's just there's an extra oomph, and you can tell when someone is actually just speaking off the cuff versus super prepared. At least that's what I resonate with mostly.
I agree.
So when it comes to someone utilizing podcasting for their business, how does someone truly measure the ROI? I know that we can say like the tangible results, right? We can say, oh, I signed a client from this podcast, or I made this much money from this podcast. But a lot of times it's almost like a slow burn, right? We go on these podcasts, we might not necessarily get immediate clients. So how else can someone, measure that ROI?
That's such a great question. And it's also a tricky question. And it's probably the biggest objection I speak to regularly, because along with that slow burn, to full transparency, it's one of the most challenging to track. And you have to be intentional with your tracking with it. So let me start with this. The slow burn here is because of the nature of it, right? There's a natural lead time with pitching, first of all, right? It could look like 1 to 3 to 6 months from pitch to interview to publication of that interview, number one. So that's first thing, right? But here's the thing. I still swear that podcast guesting is the number one marketing tool. And the reason I stand behind that is because with consistency and momentum with it, it creates the consistent leads. Because what you're ultimately doing is you're building thought leadership. You're building authority. That's visibility. When you look at the big influencers today and big names of people you know, they're not only on one social media platform, right? First of all. And, they've got several different kind of media things going on, TV, news article, podcasts, like you name it. They're creative. They're out there. They are visible. It takes time to build that. You don't just go, hi, I'm still trying to master one social media account. You don't just go overnight to be like this like huge influencer. You might, you could have something go viral, but to really build true success, it happens over time. Podcast guesting helps you establish that authority, that thought leadership to get you there. So if you know you have big dreams and you have a big vision and you're like, I got to get myself there. My thing is like speaking, first of all, in whatever realm you can. Podcast guesting will always stand behind that alongside your other marketing strategies and funnels and all the things, right? So you're going to have everything else alongside. So podcast guesting is your PR. That is your visibility. That is your media channel. And you can have other things alongside that. But what does that do? And once the episode is published, it's evergreen, it's out there. When you have a podcast host who is, well-equipped, truly, and use strategic keywords with the show notes and everything, now that creates SEO analytics. You can have backlinks back to your website. There's a whole realm here of possibility, right? So now you become Google, searchable on Google. Again, hi, this is me. Searchable on Google. All the things, right? But it takes time to build that. It just doesn't happen overnight. So you have to be patient. That's why I'm saying start now. Don't wait on your visibility, but don't have that be your only thing. Like have your other functions and strategy alongside that, right? So that's the big thing. Now, going back to what I was saying with tracking, yes, you have to track. So, SEO is this whole other beast, and I have someone I can refer people to with that. That is not my lens of expertise at all, but there's ways to track that way. The biggest thing I tell my clients, at least to start until you can get someone or resources to help you more with this, is create unique links. So first of all, if you're going to go on a podcast, chances are you're probably going to have some you should always have a call to action, right? To have people come back to you. Tie that back to your goals. What are you trying to do? You're trying to build your email list, trying to grow your following, social media. Like, what is that, right? Have a call to action. And if you have the opportunity to provide a free resource or document like that, that is a good lead magnet to track people back to you. Create unique links, right? It might just be one link to start that's like, /podcast that you use for all of your podcast guest appearances. So now you can see the traffic coming in from, those clicks. You could also create unique links for every episode, every podcast you interview on. The other thing too is asking through your conversations, how did you find me? Where did you come from, right? Having those conversations, asking it, and then tracking it in your CRM, keeping actual track of it. The biggest thing, when people and clients and, prospective clients say to me, how do I track the ROI? I'm like, you have to stay consistent with it, but you have to track it. You have to follow it. If you're not actually looking for the data, you're not going to have the data. It's not going to tell you anything, right? And you have to have those conversations. So yeah, the ROI is probably the most difficult to track, truly. But also understanding that the impact of podcast guesting, again, it goes back to that thought leadership, that authority, all of that. It's more than just clients. Does it bring in clients? Absolutely. but it's more than that. It's collaborations, it's referrals, it's partnerships, it's monumental, right? So is it possible to sign on a client from someone that just listens to you on a podcast? Absolutely. I see it happen. But more often than not, it's a way to get people closer to you. And then once they're closer to you, you nurture them
I love all
through
of
the
that.
relationship building like we're talking about.
Yeah. And I actually had a client call this morning where we talked about the idea of starting her own podcast. And I think for me personally and where her journey is, it's well beyond overdue. And it's something that would be so great for her. She has massive visibility already on a lot of social media platforms, already has a YouTube channel. So this would just be something so easy for her. And a lot of times it's an easy transition. And just to then reiterate the ROI, like I have signed clients who have never heard of me before, were not following me on social media. I was a guest on some podcasts and podcasts that didn't have, thousands of downloads every month, right? It was just small podcasts, small followings on Instagram, and someone literally heard my episode and then came and worked with me. And so like that does happen. The other thing I will say then for me as looking at someone's business as a whole and holistically and all of the lead generation activities they're doing, a lot of my clients who do have their own podcasts and or guest on podcasts, their warmest leads come from podcasts, YouTube. So, and a lot of those things, they don't have to rely on guests for, right? It's them, it's their expertise, and they're coming to them from these channels, from the long form content. And they're like instantly buying $3,000 courses because the content itself, because it's long form, because there's a good call to action, because they were clear in their topic, that is what's turning into clients. It's not, I found them on Instagram. Now I'm going to wait 3 more months and then sign up with them. These leads are so warm when they come from podcast land, I feel.
100%. Yes. You could be like my marketing promo. No, I'm serious though. But that's what it is. It really accelerates the trust building so much. Because the thing with podcast listeners, first of all, research shows this has been proven and that podcast listeners are just at a different caliber. First of all, these are people who are very engaged because they are, again, it's intention, right? They're intentionally listening to the podcast. And the thing with listeners is they come for the guest, but they stay for the host. So they already trust the host. You just invited me on this show. So now that automatically, Lauren trusts Kim, boom, right? Even if it's a subconscious thing, right? And then people are hearing me talk. So you might relate with my story. You might vibe with my energy. You get to know me as a person more than a 30-second reel on Instagram, right? Or like my bio on my website. And so it creates that realness and it accelerates the trust tremendously, which is another reason why I really stand by this as the visibility strategy to really anchor in. Your audience comes to you already warm and very close to hot, if not already hot. So, yeah.
No, so true. So I have a couple more questions for you. If someone is like, okay, I'm listening to this podcast episode, I know I need to pitch myself, I don't know where to get started, what is that first step they need to take?
The first step is so actually, this is the first step in my framework that I work on. And it's also very unsexy, but it's the strategy. What do I mean by that? Make sure, first of all, that you are crystal clear on who and what, right? So who do you serve? What do you do? What's your transformation that you help them see? And how do you do it? That is your niche, your messaging. I call it psychological factors. Like, who is that ideal client? Who are they? Why I say make sure you're anchored into that. Again, it's not about perfection, okay? Start with where you are now because we as humans evolve. By virtue of that, our business evolves. Sometimes the types of our clients evolve, our offers evolve. So it's like stop chasing the perfect messaging, anchor in on what you know now. Who, what, how, right? Your strategy. That is your foundation. From there, you can then cultivate your signature topics because ultimately you are wanting to, that's part of the positioning. And so that's the strategy I'm talking about now, right? You want to position yourself when you're pitching to podcasts. And that's the key to finding the right podcast. Going back to what you were saying it's not about the size of the podcast. It's about the alignment of the podcast, right? Quality over quantity. So it won't serve you to speak to a really large audience that is not your ideal client. So finding that alignment, right? So that foundation, that strategy is huge. That is truly step number one, because from there, you're like, okay, boom, your signature topics are birthed. Then you're like, once you have that, you're like, okay, now research, finding the right podcast. And then once you have that, you create your pitch and boom, 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 there you go. So truly, your foundation has to be solid. That's where you start.
Yeah, it's always the boring stuff, right? You need the boring stuff. I think that's like, and I always say that too. It's so funny. We are truly so much alike, because anytime I talk to somebody about, selling their offers or marketing, or, I think that the marketing and the strategy a lot of times for my clients that's the fun stuff. The boring stuff is the clarity, the positioning, the, just like clarifying your message. Like no one wants to do that. Ideal client, like no one wants to do that because it is boring, but it is foundational and it is so, so, so important. The last question I have for you is, how do you stay grounded every day?
I love this question. I loved all the questions today, but this one is near and dear to my heart. The grounding is that nervous system regulation. That's the self-care that is so important to being tuned in with your intuition, to standing in your truth, your power, your authenticity, using your voice, all of that. Grounding can look like a number of different things to anybody, right? And when I say self-care, like, do I enjoy going to get my nails done every once in a while? Yeah, I have a hair appointment today I'm looking forward to. But that's not going to regulate your nervous system, right? So it really is tuning in to what do you need and then actively practicing those things. So, and I say, what do you need? If people have not done this before, it can be so foreign, but this is also the beauty of stepping outside of your comfort zone because you discover so much about yourself. For me, what that looks like is stillness. Sitting in stillness with myself is where I can connect. I get downloads and I get clarity. That might look like meditation. Truly actually being in stillness. It might look like breathwork. I have a breathwork community that I'm a part of. I do breathwork weekly. That has been monumental in regulating my nervous system and connecting me with my intuition. But I'm also a runner. We talked about that, right? So physical movement too will regulate your nervous system. It could be yoga, it could be Pilates, it could be going out for a walk in nature. So for me, it is really tuning into what do I need today? But I do have my favorites that I kind of pull from. And that is also a practice that you learn over time. Like breath work, I resisted that when I started it. Now I'm like, oh gosh, I crave it. Truly.
It's so nice to just take a deep breath. I mean, truly, if you haven't just gotten to a moment where there's high anxiety, and the same thing with me too. Again, I've realized that breath work is important, grounding, meditation, all of those things I've kind of done over the last few years as well. And it's so cool now when you get into those high intense situations and you're like, okay, just take 4 breaths, box breathing, right? It's so simple, but it takes a lot for you to when you are having a stressful day or you are in front of the computer for 8 hours and you are feeling yourself just with the stress overflowing in your body, just taking a moment and pausing and just doing some box breathing. You can just take some breaths and it literally just melts away. So yeah, I love that. Again,
it
another
does.
thing we have similar.
I know. I call it creating safety, right? So anytime you feel that resistance and you're like, oh, I have to hit send on this email or, oh, I gotta go talk to my team or whatever it is, breathe. Just breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Let your body know you are safe because it's just your brain trying to trick you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for this conversation. This is so good. And I feel like we can dive deeper on all of these other topics. This was so fun to learn more about you. Where can people learn more about your work? How can we connect with you?
Yeah, everything easy. It's Pitch with Kim. It's my website. It's pitchwithkim.com, Instagram, Pitch with Kim, and my email too. If you want to reach out to me directly, I welcome DMs on Instagram always. Again, relationship building. I love having conversations. So please, I'm an open door. Come on in. But yeah, if you want to reach out to me by email, kim@pitchwithkim.com. It's very easy.
Perfect. Well, Kim's going to be back with us later this week on another episode of Business Chaser. And we look forward to hearing more from you. Thank you so much, Kim. This was so good. And I'm so excited for people to hear this.
Thank you, Lauren. This is great.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Over Cocktails, where real stories and bold business moves come to life. If this episode lit something up in you, share it with a friend, tag me at Lauren Najar or the podcast page at Business Over Cocktails. Make sure to leave a quick review as well. It helps more than you know. Until next time, keep chasing what matters and building the business that feels like you. Cheers.